The storm had been gnawing at the horizon for hours, ash-black clouds crawling over the dead plains, thunderless but alive with electric veins. Lieutenant Jason Hale adjusted his oxygen intake, the hiss of his rebreather blending with the whispering dust. He'd been walking for 16 clicks without signal contact, his boots crunching through glassy earth that used to be soil before the wars burned the planet to cinders. His mission log blinked faintly on his wrist display. TE9/Recon Scout Hale/Day 37/Objective. Survey Southern Ruin Belt. It was routine. Tedious. Lonely. The kind of job they gave soldiers when they wanted them forgotten but not yet dead. Jason was fine with that. He checked the scanner. No movement, no heat signatures, just the endless cold of the world. Then the tremor came. A low vibration that rolled through his bones. He froze. It wasn't tectonic. It had rhythm. He crouched, palm pressed against the ground. The tremor came again, 2 beats, a pause, then 3 shorter ones. Something massive was moving underground. The recon drones had reported subterrestrial caverns beneath this region, but whatever this was, it wasn't rock shifting. It was alive. Jason swallowed, keyed the sensor lens on his visor, and swept the ridge ahead. Faint readings flickered on the display, heat traces fading but recent. Blood maybe. The kind that registered both hot and cold at once. He should have reported it. Protocol said, observe and retreat. But protocol didn't mean much to a man who hadn't spoken to another soul in over a month. So he followed the trail. The terrain narrowed into a canyon of black glass and twisted rebar, the skeletons of old colony walls buried in volcanic ash. Each step echoed, swallowed by the wind. The blood trail grew thicker, splattering across slabs of half-melted steel. Then he saw it. At first, his brain refused to register what his eyes saw. The creature lay crumpled between shattered pylons, wings folded tight against its massive frame, scales dull and fractured. It was nearly 5 meters long, with an exoskeletal ridge that shimmered faintly under his headlamp. One of its forelimbs was impaled through by jagged metal. The wound pulsed slowly, every throb pushing out a slick black fluid that steamed in the cold air. Jason's breath caught. His heart slammed against his chest. Ravthar. Every soldier in the galaxy had heard of them, the apex predators that turned entire regiments into red mist. The Galactic Council classified them as extinction-level entities. If one of these had survived the purges, its discovery meant the Council would glass this entire planet. It should have been dead. He took a cautious step back, hand tightening around his rifle. The creature's eyes flickered, 4 of them, vertical slits glowing faint orange through layers of translucent lid. It made no sound, just a slow intake of breath, a shudder that trembled through its colossal ribs. Jason's visor flashed a warning, biohazard detected. He should have left. He should have burned it down with a plasma grenade and reported the remains. But something stopped him, something buried under the years of orders and losses. Maybe it was the sound it made, low and broken, like a wounded animal trying not to die loudly. He lowered his rifle. "You're dying," he muttered, voice muffled through the helmet. "And I'm talking to a nightmare." The creature's head turned slightly toward the sound. Its breathing hitched. Jason's pulse spiked. He switched to a narrowband comm, not that it could understand. "If you can breathe, you can fight. If you can fight, you deserve a chance." He unclipped his medgel drone. The small device buzzed to life, floating toward the creature. Its sensors flickered uncertainly as it analyzed the black ichor. "Unknown organic composition," it chirped. "Probability of hostility, 100%. "Yeah," Jason said. "That's fair." He moved closer. The air grew heavy, metallic with the scent of burned ozone. The closer he got, the more alien the thing seemed, its body armor grown rather than built, layers of chitin seamlessly merging with muscle. This wasn't biology, it was war-made flesh. He crouched by its impaled limb, slicing through the shard with a thermal cutter. The creature flinched but didn't attack. Its gaze followed his every motion, unreadable. Jason worked quickly, sealing the wound with a burst of nanosealant foam. The gel hissed as it met the alien tissue, steaming with faint bioluminescence. "Come on, big guy," he muttered. "Stay with me." The medgel drone beeped again. Vitals stabilizing. Organism entering stasis recovery. Jason exhaled, not realizing he'd been holding his breath. He backed away, keeping his rifle lowered. The creature's breathing steadied, eyes dimming. For a moment, it looked almost peaceful. He stared at it for a long time. A predator that had slaughtered entire battalions, and he had just saved it. The irony wasn't lost on him. He left the medgel hovering near the creature, running a slow scan. Then he turned back toward the canyon mouth. He'd return to camp, report nothing, and let the storm bury the rest. As he walked away, the wind picked up. The storm had arrived at last, thick ash twisting like smoke, lightning crawling silently through the clouds. Jason's visibility dropped to meters. His HUD flickered, losing satellite sync. He trudged forward, muttering, "Another day, another bad decision." Something shifted behind him. The sound was soft, almost delicate, like claws brushing against stone. He froze, turned slowly. Through the curtain of ash, a shape emerged, massive, limping but moving with uncanny precision. The same glowing eyes, now burning brighter against the darkness. The Ravthar. It had risen. Its limbs still weak, its chest heaving with effort, but it was following him. Each step was deliberate, slow, controlled. Jason's instincts screamed to run, to dive, to fight, but the creature didn't lunge. It stopped a few meters behind him and simply watched. He raised a hand, half in warning, half in disbelief. "You're kidding me?" The creature tilted its head, the faintest rasp of air escaping its jaws, a sound that might have been curiosity. Jason turned and kept walking, pace steady, pulse racing. The rhythmic steps behind him matched his own, echoing in the storm like a second heartbeat. He tried to outpace it. It followed. He slowed. It slowed. By the time he reached the shattered remains of his forward camp, a half-collapsed survey pod and a flickering beacon, the creature had settled a short distance away, crouching low, its eyes fixed on the flickering light. Jason climbed inside the pod, sealed the hatch, and slumped against the cold metal wall. His hands were shaking. He opened his log recorder. "Scout Hale, Day 37, he said, voice unsteady. "Encountered Class A apex predator, Ravthar. Mortally wounded. Assisted with stabilization. Followed me. Currently observing from 50 meters out. No aggression detected yet. Either it's too weak to kill me, or it's waiting for something." He paused, glancing at the display. The sensor feed showed the faint outline of the creature outside, still as stone, eyes glowing softly in the dark. "Note for command," he added dryly. "If I go missing, tell them I died doing something stupid." He ended the recording and shut his eyes. The wind howled around the pod, shaking the walls. Every instinct told him to stay awake, to be ready. But exhaustion won. When he opened his eyes hours later, dawn was breaking, thin orange light filtering through the cracked viewport. The ash had settled. He checked the sensor feed again. The creature was gone. Relief washed through him, quick, sharp, and short-lived. Because as he stepped outside, he saw it. A carcass, some twisted scavenger from the ash fields, lay at his feet, torn cleanly in two, placed neatly beside the pod door. A gift. He stared at it for a long time, then at the faint trail of footprints leading away into the storm's fading mist. For the first time in 37 days, Jason Hale wasn't alone on this planet. And somewhere beyond the ridge, the universe's deadliest predator was watching him. The night storms on Thyra 9 never truly ended. They only shifted, waves of ash rolling like an ocean, hiding the horizon. Jason Hale sat beside a dim fire in his collapsed dome, wrapped in the metallic hush of the ruined world. The wind keened through the broken structures, a lonely whistle that blended with the crackle of burning insulation. He hadn't slept much since the encounter. His helmet hung beside him, its display still running a faint motion scan. Every few minutes, the same faint blip appeared on the edge of the map, then disappeared again. He stirred the fire with a piece of metal, watching the embers flare. He had stopped trying to tell himself it was coincidence. The creature was still out there. Watching. Waiting. His radio clicked with static, only his own pre-recorded logs looping back. He didn't bother shutting them off. The sound of his own voice was better than silence. "Scout Hale, Day 38, the recording said faintly. "Ravthar still alive. Keeps distance. Possible behavioral shift, stalking pattern change to observation. Unknown motivation." He muted it. Observation. That word clung to his thoughts like static. He glanced through the cracked viewport. Beyond the firelight, shadows moved, slow, careful, patient. The creature didn't need to be close to make him feel it. He could sense it, a pressure in the air, a heavy awareness like being caught in a predator's gaze. By dawn, his nerves were raw. He stepped outside with his rifle slung low, scanning the ash fields. There, 50 meters away, the silhouette waited. Massive, crouched on a ridge, its hide glimmering faintly with the new light. 4 eyes reflecting amber fire. Jason exhaled through his nose. "You again?" he muttered. It didn't move. He took a cautious step forward. The creature tilted its head, a slow, deliberate motion, almost mirroring him. He froze, testing. He lifted a hand, palm outward. The creature's forelimbs shifted, not quite mimicking but acknowledging. He felt something twist in his chest. He'd seen animal intelligence before, pack tactics, instinct, even mimicry, but this was different. There was deliberation. His scanner buzzed, projecting faint readings. Biosignature stable, recovering strength. It had survived the infection. Against every rule of biology, the nanosealant had adapted to its alien tissue. Jason lowered his hand and backed toward the camp. The creature didn't follow, but its eyes tracked every movement. Later, when he set out to scavenge the nearby ruins for power cells, he caught it again, at the edge of sight, always distant, never close. When he stopped to rest, it stopped. When he moved, it moved. The shadow behind the scout. At midday, he found a collapsed mining outpost half buried in slag. The old reactors were dead, but the med station still held sealed containers. He pried one open and pulled a ration bar, half stale, half frozen. When he looked up, the creature was perched on the rim of the canyon above, head low, watching him eat. "Sorry," he said aloud, not sure why. "Didn't pack any for guests." The creature made a sound, not a growl, not quite a hiss. More like an exhale through a broken throat. Jason tore the bar in half, tossed the other piece into the sand. It landed with a dull thud. The creature sniffed the air, then climbed down, movements precise and controlled despite its size. It stopped short of the food, studying him first. Only when he turned away did it lower its head and take the offering. He didn't realize he was smiling until the moment passed. Back at camp, the air was cooler. The creature followed him again, settling near the perimeter like a sentry. Jason sat at the fire's edge, helmet off, staring at the creature's outline. Its breathing was slow, rhythmic. A strange kind of calm spread between them. He activated his log recorder. Day 39. Ravthar maintaining proximity, approximately 20 meters. Displays no aggression. Behavior suggests curiosity or, he trailed off. No, not curiosity. Recognition. He switched off the recorder. The firelight shimmered across the creature's armor, reflecting small fractures sealed with glowing resin. His resin. It had healed because of him. Because of what he'd done when every regulation told him not to. A wind stirred, carrying the faint sound of shifting rock. The creature's head lifted sharply, eyes narrowing toward the distance. Jason's motion scanner flashed, movement approaching from the east. Not large, not armored, small quadrupeds, scavengers. A pack. He raised his rifle, scanning. 6 of them slinking low through the dust. Their hides shimmered with spines. Carrion hunters. The creature rose, every muscle coiling in silence. Jason flicked his rifle's safety. "Easy," he muttered, though he wasn't sure who he was talking to. The pack lunged first, shadows streaking through the firelight. Jason fired 3 short bursts, plasma bolts cutting through the air. The scavengers screeched, scattering, but one slipped past, darting toward him. Before he could turn, something huge moved between them. The Ravthar slammed down, claws sweeping in a single fluid arc. The scavenger didn't even have time to scream. The rest fled. The creature stood there, chest heaving, for eyes blazing in the half-light. Jason slowly lowered his weapon. "You didn't have to do that," he said quietly. The predator turned its head toward him. There was blood on its claws, dark, steaming, alien, but it didn't move closer. It only stayed there like a wall of living armor. Jason understood then. It hadn't followed him out of hunger. It wasn't waiting to decide whether he was prey. It had chosen. When the storm came again that night, he secured the dome and sealed the vents. Outside, lightning crawled across the plains, silent and silver. Through the viewport, he saw the creature settle beside the dome's entrance, crouched low, wings curved forward as a shield against the wind, protecting him. He sat with his back to the wall, listening to the storm beat against the shelter. The idea of sleeping while a Ravthar guarded the door should have terrified him, but the exhaustion pulled him under all the same. When he woke, the storm had passed. The dome was half buried in ash, light filtering through cracks in dull amber. He stepped outside, brushing soot from his armor. The air felt different, heavier somehow, but warmer. The creature was still there, standing at the edge of the clearing, staring toward the rising sun. For the first time, Jason saw its full form in daylight. The scales along its back shimmered with faint iridescence like wet stone. Its limbs were corded with muscle, but its movements were quiet, deliberate. Not just a killer, an intelligent being. He walked a few steps closer. It didn't retreat. "I'm calling you Shadow," he said softly. The creature blinked. A slow, rolling growl, low, resonant, vibrated in its chest. Not threat. A sound closer to acknowledgement. Jason laughed once quietly. Guess that's a yes. For the rest of the day he worked on repairing his signal dish. Shadow followed at a distance, watching each movement like it was learning. When Jason cut metal or lit a torch, the creature's eyes flickered, reflecting the orange glow with unsettling fascination. That evening when he lit the fire again, Shadow came closer. Close enough that Jason could see the way its pupils contracted against the light. It sat across from him, silent, watching the flames. Jason spoke without thinking. You ever wonder why we do this? Sit near fire? Maybe it reminds us we're not alone. The creature tilted its head. A puff of air left its throat almost like a sigh. He chuckled softly. Right. Not much of a talker. The night stretched long and quiet. Every few minutes the creature would glance at him, then back to the fire. He caught himself doing the same. When fatigue finally settled in, Jason turned off the fire, leaving only the dim glow of embers. Shadow stayed awake, its eyes gleaming faintly. He lay back inside the dome, whispering to himself, Day 40. Not dead yet. The predator isn't the monster I thought. Outside the wind died down. Silence reclaimed the plains. In that silence something shifted between them, something that wasn't fear anymore. The hunter and the human, bound by a fragile thread neither of them could name. By morning the dome sensors logged a faint anomaly. One large biosignature positioned consistently near the perimeter through the night. No aggression. No movement away. Jason studied the readout, then glanced at the shape beyond the glass, Shadow standing still against the pale sun. He didn't need to record it to know what it meant. The galaxy might see an apex predator. But out here, on a world too dead to care, Jason Hale saw something else entirely. Companionship. And in the distance, unseen by either of them, a faint transmission flickered across the upper atmosphere. A coded signal from orbit, marking Thyra 9 for scan. The Council was coming. Jason didn't know it yet, but the piece he'd found would soon become a battlefield. Still, for now, he let himself watch the creature in the light, its gaze steady and unafraid, and wondered what kind of universe created something so dangerous, and let it learn trust. The wind shifted again, carrying the sound of the creature's breathing, slow and measured, perfectly in rhythm with his own. The sky above Thyra 9 burned with streaks of light, thin, surgical flares slicing through the upper atmosphere. Jason Hale squinted up at them through his cracked visor, standing on the ridge where his signal dish once stood. For 2 weeks, he'd lived in the shadow of the creature he'd named Shadow, learning its rhythms, watching it heal, even speaking to it as though it could understand. But now, something else was watching them both. The static in his comms had changed. It wasn't natural interference. It pulsed, deliberate and coded. He recognized it instantly. Military-grade encryption. Council frequency. Jason's stomach dropped. He crouched near the dish, scanning the signal through his wrist console. The readout scrolled rapidly. Unauthorized human presence detected on restricted world Thyra 9. Confirm identity. Stand by for orbital survey. He killed the transmission before it could ping his coordinates, then looked out at the plains. A faint hum echoed through the air, mechanical and cold. Drones. Shadow lifted its head from where it rested near the rocks, eyes narrowing. Its body stiffened, spines rising like drawn blades. Jason felt the same tension crawl through him. Yeah, he whispered. I hear it too. He packed what little gear he had, rifle, medgel, ration bars, and began dismantling the signal dish. The hum grew louder, joined by the low, thrumming beat of engines. A flash in the distance confirmed what he feared most. Dropships descending through the storm. Council markings glimmered on their hulls, silver and blue. The Galactic Rangers. Jason cursed under his breath. They weren't here for him. They were here for the thing beside him. Shadow growled low, a deep resonance that rolled through the ground. Jason put a hand on its foreleg. We need to move. Now. The creature's gaze met his. For a heartbeat there was something like understanding. Then as one they turned and ran. The canyons became their refuge, the walls rising like jagged teeth around them. Jason's breath rasped in his helmet as he sprinted beside the massive form of the creature. Shadow's movement was silent despite its size, claws gripping the stone, tail whipping for balance. Above them, the distant echo of engines followed. They stopped in a narrow gully, panting. Jason knelt beside a cracked console buried in rubble, rerouting his scanner's feed to intercept the Ranger transmissions. He didn't have to wait long. Recon Team Sigma 4, eyes on confirmed bioform signature. Category, Ravthar. Orders are extermination by plasma strike. Secondary note, human heat trace detected. Possible contamination. Authorization to purge. The voice was cold, clipped, bureaucratic. Jason felt his jaw tighten. He turned to Shadow, who was watching him with 4 unblinking eyes. "They'll kill you," he said quietly. "And me if I stay with you." The creature's chest rumbled, not in defiance but something almost mournful. Jason sighed and looked back at the scanner. The Rangers had triangulated their location. 10 minutes until ground teams arrived. The orbiting ship would sterilize the entire quadrant soon after. He checked his rifle, more out of habit than hope. "Guess I always wanted to go out doing something stupid." The creature shifted closer, lowering itself, a strange gesture, almost as if it was waiting for him to climb on. Jason stared at it, then let out a disbelieving laugh. "You can't be serious." Shadow turned its head toward the rising hum in the distance. The implication was clear. Jason slung his rifle, muttered a prayer he didn't believe in, and climbed onto the creature's back. Its scales were warm, pulsing faintly under his palms. Then they moved, faster than anything alive should have been able to move. The world blurred into streaks of red and gray as they raced through the canyon. Drones broke through the clouds above, beams of light sweeping the terrain. One passed too close. Jason fired upward, plasma bolts cutting through the air. The drone exploded in a shower of sparks. Shadow leapt, claws finding purchase on the sheer rock face, carrying them up to a ledge. The moment they reached the top, Jason saw the drop pods landing, sleek, insect-like craft spilling armored figures onto the ground. Rangers in mirrored visors and environmental suits. Visual confirmation on human, one of them barked over comms. "Engage non-lethal. Apex creature at range, lethal protocols authorized." They raised their rifles. Jason's voice cracked through his external speaker. "Stop. You don't understand." The first plasma bolt struck the rock beside him, searing the air with white light. Shadow roared, a sound so deep the world seemed to vibrate with it, and charged. The Rangers scattered as the creature hit the ground like a meteor. Its claws ripped through metal and armor alike. One soldier's scream was cut short. Another fired a grenade launcher, the blast throwing Jason back. His ears rang. Dust filled the air. He crawled to his knees, vision swimming. Shadow was bleeding, dark fluid spraying across the ground, but it didn't slow. Every movement was a blur of strength and fury, precise, relentless. "Hold fire," someone shouted. "We need the specimen alive." Jason grabbed his rifle and fired a burst into the air. "Stop shooting," he yelled. "You'll kill us all." But the council didn't hear him. Or didn't care. From the sky came a piercing whine, a sound that made the ground tremble. Jason looked up. The orbital ship had locked its weapons. Shadow turned toward the noise, eyes blazing, blood running down its armor. It moved to stand between Jason and the sky. Jason's hand clenched around his communicator. "This is Lieutenant Jason Hale, Human Expeditionary Division. You're targeting a live human asset, do you copy? I repeat, human presence confirmed. Stand down." No response. Only the rising pitch of the orbital cannon powering up. He slammed his communicator into the dirt, heart racing. They're not stopping. The creature crouched low, wings half unfurled, pulling him close against its armored chest. The air thickened as the atmosphere charged. The first blast hit miles away, a white column of plasma tearing the horizon apart. The shockwave hit seconds later, knocking Jason off his feet. Shadow threw itself over him, absorbing the impact. Heat seared the air, melting sand into glass. When the light faded, Jason could barely move. He tasted blood, felt the weight of debris pressing down. The creature's breathing was ragged. He pushed against its side, shouting, "Shadow! Get up, come on!" The creature stirred, slow and pained. One wing hung torn, half of its body scorched. But its eyes still glowed, fierce, unyielding. It turned toward him, pushing him gently upright with its good forelimb. Jason staggered, coughing. "We can't stay here. More are coming." The comm crackled suddenly, a voice sharp and terrified. "Commander, new reading, Ravthar energy signature fused with human biofield. I think, it bonded with him." Silence followed. Then another voice, calm and deadly, "Terminate both." Jason's blood ran cold. He looked at Shadow, whose gaze met his once more. There was no fear in it, only understanding. Another volley of plasma bolts rained down, scorching the canyon. Jason fired back blindly, shouting as the air filled with heat and light. Shadow lunged again, intercepting the attack, crushing a drone midair with its jaws. But even as it fought, its movements slowed. Jason scrambled toward a fallen ranger, pulling a grenade from the corpse's belt. "You want a target?" he muttered. "Fine." He armed it and hurled it toward the nearest dropship. The explosion tore through the landing gear, flipping the craft on its side. Smoke and fire swallowed the canyon. When the dust settled, Jason stood trembling amid the wreckage. The Rangers were retreating, calling for extraction. The sky darkened again as the orbital ship adjusted its aim. He turned to Shadow, who stood bleeding in the ashes. The creature stepped closer, pressing its head lightly against his chest. The gesture was shockingly gentle. Jason rested a hand on the creature's skull. "We're not done," he said hoarsely. "Not yet." Shadow's breath came slow and heavy, but it nodded, or the closest thing to it. Jason activated the last functioning beacon in his pack. Its signal was weak, but it reached deep beneath the crust, scanning for any remaining structures. A faint pulse answered, "A cavern system 5 kilometers north. Shelter." He pointed toward the distance. "We make it there, we live." The creature lowered itself again, allowing him to climb on. Its body trembled as it rose, but its stride was steady. As they moved through the burning plains, Jason looked back once. The sky behind them pulsed with white light as the council began its purge. Everything they'd left behind, the camp, the ridge, even the remains of the fallen, was consumed in silence. He didn't know if they could survive another day. But he knew one thing with perfect clarity. Somewhere between blood and fire, the universe's deadliest predator had chosen to stand beside a man. And for the first time in his life, Jason Hale was willing to fight the entire galaxy for a friend. They disappeared into the ash-choked horizon, the storm closing behind them like a curtain, the world itself holding its breath for what would come next. The desert stretched endlessly beneath a blood-orange sky, its horizon fractured by heat and smoke. Jason Hale's lungs burned as he leaned against Shadow's scarred flank. They'd been walking for hours, no days maybe. He'd lost count somewhere between the last council bombardment and the moment his water supply ran dry. Shadow limped beside him, one wing dragging behind like a broken flag. The creature's body, once sleek and terrifying, was now a patchwork of scars, some still glowing faintly from plasma burns. Yet its eyes remained bright, watchful, alive. "Almost there," Jason murmured, though he wasn't sure if he said it for Shadow or himself. His beacon flickered weakly on his wrist, the green pulse slower with each step. The cavern system should have been within sight hours ago. But Thyra 9 was cruel, its landscapes shifting, its magnetic fields distorting every reading. Shadow halted suddenly. Jason froze too. The air around them shimmered, not with heat but with movement. A figure stepped out from behind a ridge, rifle raised. "Drop your weapon," a voice commanded. It was sharp, human, and female. Jason blinked in disbelief. A human voice, alive here? He slowly raised his hands. "You're Lieutenant Hale?" The woman cut him off. Her visor slid open, revealing sunburned skin and weary green eyes. "I thought you were dead." Jason's throat tightened. "Reese?" "Captain Mira Reese, exobiologist and combat engineer. His second in command from the original expedition." She lowered her weapon slowly, eyes flicking to Shadow. "What in all the stars is that thing doing alive?" Jason stepped between them instinctively. "It's with me." Reese's expression hardened. "With you?" "Jason, that's a Ravthar. It should have torn you in half." "It tried," he admitted quietly. "Then I patched it up. It didn't forget." Reese stared at him like he'd lost his mind. "You're telling me the most dangerous predator in the quadrant is your pet?" "Not a pet," Jason said, voice low. "Partner." A tense silence followed. The wind whispered through the dunes, carrying the smell of ozone and burnt sand. Then distant thunder rolled, the unmistakable rumble of approaching engines. Reese swore under her breath. "Council's sweeping again. They've been glassing the surface for 3 days, trying to wipe every trace of the bioform." Jason frowned. "You've been here that long?" She nodded, pulling a cracked datapad from her pack. "I was part of the second survey team. They sent us to confirm your death and collect DNA traces from the Ravthar. Then they realized you might have survived. The Council's orders changed, from retrieval to termination." Jason's pulse quickened. "Termination of both?" Reese met his gaze grimly. "You're considered compromised. They think it bonded with you on a cellular level. That you're both part of the same organism now." Jason felt the weight of her words sink in. He looked at Shadow, who tilted its head as if sensing his unease. "They're not entirely wrong," he muttered. "It's complicated." Reese took a cautious step forward, scanning Shadow. "You're bleeding radiation, Jason. The Ravdar's physiology is rewriting your biochemistry. If you stay bonded, you won't stay human for long." He didn't answer. Couldn't. The truth was already eating at the edge of his mind. The way his wounds healed faster, how he could feel Shadow's heartbeat even when apart. "We can't stay here," Reese continued. "There's an old mining shelter 5 clicks north. We can regroup there, call for extraction, if they'll even respond." Shadow let out a low growl at the word extraction. Jason put a hand on its leg, calming it. "We'll go," he said finally. Reese gave the creature one last wary look before leading the way. The journey through the canyons was slow and silent, broken only by the distant rumble of thunder or bombs. Every few minutes, Jason felt the tingle of static along his skin, the telltale signature of scanning drones overhead. Shadow moved with eerie precision, guiding them through hidden crevices and shadowed valleys, as though it knew the world better than any map could. When they reached the shelter, Jason expected ruins. Instead, they found something alive. The metal hatch hissed open to reveal a dimly lit interior, walls lined with power cells blinking faintly. A small cluster of survivors turned toward them, their faces gaunt, eyes wide with disbelief. "Holy hell," one whispered. "You brought it here?" Reese raised a hand. "Stand down. He's in command." Jason scanned the group, scientists, soldiers, a medic. 7 in total. They looked half dead, starved and terrified. A man stepped forward, beard unkempt, uniform tattered. "Commander Voss, Planetary Ops. We picked up your beacon. Didn't think anyone else made it." Jason nodded. "I didn't think anyone did either." Voss's gaze shifted past him to Shadow, who loomed just outside the hatch. "That thing can't stay here," he said firmly. "We're already at radiation limits. It's a biohazard." Jason stepped forward. "Without it, none of us are alive right now. It's protected me for weeks. You don't have to like it, but you'll respect it." The tension in the room spiked. Voss's jaw tightened, but Reese spoke first. "He's right. We don't have time for politics. We need a plan." Jason moved toward the main console, wiping dust from the cracked screen. "Council ships are still in orbit?" 3 of them, Reese confirmed. Heavy-class destroyers. They're prepping for a final cleansing sweep. Anything moving on the surface will be erased. Jason's eyes flicked to the blinking display, an orbital scan of Thyra 9. A cluster of red dots spread across the map, closing in on their position. "They're not sweeping. They're hunting." Reese frowned. "For you?" Jason hesitated. "For both of us." Shadow shifted restlessly outside, the tips of its claws scraping the metal floor. Jason turned back to the group. "We have one option. There's a geothermal core beneath this region, the same one that powered the mining ops. If we overload it, the explosion will fry the orbital targeting systems and give us a window to escape." Voss shook his head. "You're talking about igniting a tectonic fault. You'll destroy half the planet." Jason met his gaze. "Then we take them with us." The room went silent. No one breathed. Finally Reese spoke, her voice low. "You're serious?" Jason nodded. "They won't stop. Not until every trace of this world, and that creature, is gone. If they get what they want, no one will ever question the next purge." Reese exhaled slowly. "All right. What do you need?" Jason began tapping commands into the console. "Access codes, charges, and time. Shadow and I can draw their fire while you set the detonators." "No," Reese said sharply. "You'll never make it back." He gave her a tired smile. "Wouldn't be the first time I didn't." She stared at him for a long moment before turning away. "Then I'll go with you." Jason opened his mouth to protest, but Shadow rumbled softly, a sound almost like approval. Jason glanced at the creature and chuckled bitterly. "You two really aren't giving me a choice, are you?" The next hours blurred into motion. They armed the mining shafts, rerouted the power grids, and prepared the final override. Every thrum of the reactor beneath their feet felt like a countdown. When the last charge was placed, Jason and Reese emerged into the open air. The night sky burned with descending ships. Dozens of them. Shadow spread what remained of its wings, a low, defiant growl echoing across the canyon. Jason climbed onto its back once more, feeling the weight of finality settle in. Reese followed, strapping herself behind him. "Tell me you know what you're doing," she muttered. He didn't answer. The ground erupted as they launched forward, streaking toward the largest of the incoming vessels. Plasma fire rained down, lighting the world in white and crimson. Shadow dodged and weaved with impossible grace, Each movement a fusion of instinct and fury. Jason could feel its pulse merging with his own. Every heartbeat, every breath, synchronized. When they reached the ridge overlooking the geothermal vents, Jason activated the detonator sequence. "This is it," he whispered. Reese tightened her grip. "Then let's make it count." The council ships loomed closer, their spotlights cutting through the storm. Jason looked up at the burning sky and then down at the creature that had become his shadow, his guardian, his reflection. "Ready?" he asked. Shadow turned its head, eyes like molten gold, and gave a sound that might have been a growl, or a promise. Jason pressed the trigger. The vents below roared to life, light spilling through the cracks of the world. The ground trembled. The first shockwave surged upward, swallowing the horizon in fire. For an instant, all sound vanished. Only light remained. Jason felt the creature tense beneath him, wings spreading wide as they leapt into the storm. The last thing he saw before the blast consumed them was Reese's face, eyes wide, awed, unafraid, and the reflection of the universe burning behind them. Then everything went white. When the light faded, Thyra 9 was gone from the council's scanners. And somewhere beyond the ashes of a dying world, something still moved in the void, part man, part legend, and something far more. The universe had just lost control of its deadliest predator. Silence. A kind of silence that wasn't empty but heavy, like the pause after a heartbeat that never comes. Jason Hale floated in it, weightless, drifting through the black. His suit's oxygen alarms had long since gone quiet, the systems fried by the explosion. All that remained was the faint pulse of energy humming through his veins, the last trace of shadow. He blinked, eyes adjusting to the faint glow that surrounded him. The stars were gone, swallowed by a roiling storm of dust and plasma. He was alive somehow. Or something close to it. He flexed his hand and watched the faint shimmer of light ripple under his skin. Not human light. Not entirely his. Then he heard it, a low vibration through the emptiness, deep and familiar. Shadow. Jason turned slowly. Out of the void, a vast silhouette emerged, moving like a shadow made flesh. The creature's form had changed, no longer wounded or bound by gravity. Its wings glowed faintly with energy, its eyes bright as newborn suns. For a moment he simply stared, unsure whether he was seeing reality or some dying dream. "You're still here?" he whispered. Shadow drifted closer, its gaze steady. A pulse ran through Jason's chest in sync with the creature's movement, an echo of thought that wasn't entirely his own. "You are alive." Jason's breath caught. It wasn't words, not exactly, but something that resonated deeper, an understanding that bypassed language entirely. "I thought we died," he said. "I triggered the core. We did. And yet we are." He almost laughed at that, though the sound came out ragged. "You're telling me we blew up a planet and just walked it off?" Shadow tilted its head slightly, the gesture oddly human. "You changed." The bond completed in the fire. Jason's heart raced. He looked at his reflection in the faint blue shimmer of the void. His eyes were no longer green but streaked with gold. His veins pulsed faintly beneath the skin, glowing in rhythm with the creature beside him. "What did you do to me?" "What you chose," Shadow replied, or rather, felt. "You did not flee. You stood beside death and called it friend. Now you are neither prey nor predator. You are both." Jason swallowed hard, the realization settling like gravity returning after too long adrift. He wasn't just linked to the creature, he was linked. Every breath, every thought intertwined. A flicker of light drew his attention upward. Something massive loomed beyond the dust cloud, angular, metallic, unmistakable. A ship. Not council standard issue but alien in design. Smooth, iridescent hull, markings like constellations etched into the metal. The voice of the universe's cruel humor echoed in his head. "You've got to be kidding me." The ship's bay opened, releasing a swarm of drones, sleek, elegant, scanning beams fanning across the debris field. Shadow shifted slightly, wings folding inward. "They search for us." "Council?" "No. Older." The word carried a weight Jason didn't like. "Older than the council?" "Older than your kind remembers." The drones fanned out, scanning the wreckage of Thyra 9's upper atmosphere. Jason and Shadow hovered in the blind spot between energy fields, invisible for now. But it wouldn't last. Jason exhaled slowly. "If they find us, they will try to cage you." A humorless smile crossed his face. "Then they'll have to learn how bad of an idea that is." Shadow's gaze lingered on him. "You speak like a hunter now. Guess I had a good teacher." The drones drew closer, their movements surgical, precise. Jason felt the static hum in the air, their scanning frequencies brushing against the hybrid energy radiating from his body. He could feel their focus turning toward him like a spotlight before it even happened. Now, Shadow urged. Jason moved instinctively, propelled not by thrusters but by thought. The energy between him and the creature surged, flaring out in a burst of blue light that shattered the nearest drone into fragments. The others reacted instantly, their beams converging. He and Shadow moved as one. The creature's wings cut through the void like blades of light, scattering the drones with bursts of kinetic energy. Jason's body moved without hesitation, his pulse guiding bursts of raw plasma from his fingertips. It wasn't human technology, it was instinctual, primal, something borrowed from the Ravthar's essence. When the last drone shattered, the void fell quiet again. Only the distant hum of the alien ship remained. Jason floated, panting, staring at his hands. What the hell am I? Alive. He almost laughed again. You've got a one-word answer for everything. Shadow turned toward the ship. They come now. The vessel's front hull shifted, splitting apart. A voice crackled through the emptiness, deep, calm, and unmistakably alien. Unregistered bioform detected. Identity, classified anomaly. Surrender for containment and study. Jason rolled his eyes. Yeah, no thanks. A blast of energy lanced from the ship, cutting across the dark. Shadow intercepted it with a wing, deflecting the beam harmlessly into space. Jason felt the impact in his bones, the shared shock echoing through their connection. They will not stop, Shadow said. They fear what we are. Jason clenched his fists. Then we give them a reason to. He focused, letting the strange energy inside him expand. The void around them seemed to bend, light warping under the strain. The ship's scanners faltered, readings collapsing into static. Shadow's wings flared fully open, casting a storm of light across the wreckage. Together they surged forward. The battle was chaos, plasma arcs, debris and silent shockwaves that rippled through the black. Jason fought like something reborn, his reflexes guided by a will that wasn't entirely his own. Every move Shadow made he felt, every thought he had Shadow understood. They were no longer separate beings, they were one fury given form. The alien ship tried to retreat, but Shadow was faster. With a roar that echoed through the void, it tore through the ship's hull, slicing through the command deck. Jason landed inside, boots hitting metal still glowing from impact. The few surviving crew, a race of crystalline beings, stared at him in awe and horror. He looked around at the devastation, chest heaving. You came looking for a weapon, he said quietly. You found one. A trembling voice answered through the broken comm. What are you? Jason glanced up at Shadow, whose vast form filled the torn opening above. His reflection shimmered in the creature's golden eyes. I'm human, he said simply. Just evolved. The ship's power core began to overload, alarms screaming. Jason didn't hesitate. He leapt back toward Shadow, who caught him midair as the ship imploded behind them. They soared away from the wreckage as light bloomed in the distance. The explosion rippled across the void, scattering debris into the abyss. For a moment, everything was still again. Jason closed his eyes, letting the silence sink in. They'll keep coming, won't they? They will try. He opened his eyes, staring into the endless stars ahead. Then we'll keep running. Running? He smirked faintly. Hunting maybe. Depends who finds who first. Shadow let out a low rumbling sound that might have been amusement. They drifted side by side through the endless dark, the shattered remains of Thyra 9 glowing faintly behind them like embers of a dying fire. Jason turned his gaze forward. Somewhere out there, the Council would already be rewriting the story, declaring Thyra 9 uninhabitable, classifying him as dead, branding the Ravthar extinct. And yet, against every rule the universe had written, both man and monster still breathed. He reached out a hand, the faint shimmer of golden energy tracing along his fingers. We can't go back, he said softly. No. Then we make something new. Yes. The bond pulsed once, bright and warm, and Jason felt the faintest echo of something he hadn't known in years, peace. Not the fragile kind that came from safety, but the fierce kind that came from purpose. Behind them, the last remnants of the Council fleet began to stir, signals blinking through the dark. Ahead of them stretched the uncharted frontier, thousands of worlds untouched, unclaimed. Jason looked toward it and smiled. Let's give the galaxy something to fear again. Shadow's wings unfolded fully, vast and luminous, their glow cutting through the eternal night. Together they shot forward into the abyss. One heartbeat, one will, one legend. leaving behind only a trail of light where two impossibilities had become one. And somewhere, in the deep silence between stars, the universe took note. The deadliest predator it had ever known no longer hunted alone.